With that, my name is Ed Cook, and I'm a SCORE counselor in Canton, Ohio. Been doing this since I retired in 2012. SCORE is a national nonprofit organization that began back in 1964, and it's grown. And we currently have over 200 chapters and 11,000 volunteers that help small businesses. So, besides sponsoring educational workshops like this, we also counsel small businesses. Our tagline is America's Counselors to Small Businesses. So, our counseling is free and confidential. Um, we counsel small businesses, medium-sized businesses, startups, for-profits, nonprofits. So if your business isn't running the way you think it should, or you want to start a new business, please reach out to us. We can help. And like I said, it is free and confidential. Locally, we're funded by the Stark Community Foundation, the Hoover Foundation, Stark State University, and we are a resource partner with the Small Business Administration. Locally, we have about 32 counselors, and they each have a very unique business skill set. We have people that retired from, they're directors of marketing. We have bankers that have been in the business for their whole entire career. So based on what you need, we kind of pull in, we kind of pick the right counselor to fit the need. Our offices are currently located at the Stark State University Business and Entrepreneur Building. You can see all of our contact information on the phone. Um, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annie. Annie, it's all yours.
Perfect. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ann Sharp. I am certified in QuickBooks. I've been using QuickBooks for well over 10 years at this point. And one of the things I pride myself in is I work really hard to teach business owners like yourselves how to use QuickBooks so that you can be savvy enough to make sure that your stuff is being done properly if you're outsourcing it, but also be able to get in and pull your reports. Or if in the interim you needed to do it yourself, you're able to do that. So today's course is going to be very basic. We are actually going to start from the beginning. So this QuickBooks class is designed for you to actually sign up for QuickBooks Online for the first time, how you would set up users, reviewing our dashboards, integrating our accounts. We're going to look at the reports, the two main reports you're going to use the most, and then we can look at other reports that might be individualized to you pending other areas that you use in QuickBooks. We're going to look at some preferences we can set. We're going to talk about setting up our bank accounts. We're going to learn what the IRS standards are for categorizations. That way you understand where to put your transactions that are getting uploaded into QuickBooks. Because again, that whole process is integration. We're going to look at if you don't want to integrate with QuickBooks, how that you enter transactions manually. I will say QuickBooks Online, the entire goal is to be integrated, but it can be done manually. And sometimes you might need to enter a few things manually. We're going to talk about creating rules, what that means, how it makes your life a little bit easier, importing data. So again, if you don't want to integrate your bank account, not only can you manually enter it, but you can import the data as well. And then I will make sure that you guys have my contact information. Sometimes during training, you get questions that are very individualized to you. I will acknowledge that question, and then I will tell you to try to reach out to me directly. Again, that's why I give you my contact information. Because if it's not something that we're going to cover in today's class, I don't really want to answer the question yet, as we have a class next week that builds on today's class, and then a week after that, we have a class that builds on both of those classes. So the goal is we start from the bottom and we work our way to being experts in QuickBooks Online, okay? So some of the stuff, if you've already signed up for QuickBooks, you already have, but we start from the beginning because we're going to build a QuickBooks file together to be everything we want it to be, and then, kind of go through step by step with that, okay? As Ed said, I will stop at the end of each section and ask if there are any questions. Because we have a large class size today, please put everything in the Q&A. That way it doesn't get lost in the chat box. Gwen will send out the PowerPoints like he said. The PowerPoints are kind of your crutch. I'm not going to have a PowerPoint on the screen the whole time. I teach live. So we are actually going to be working in QuickBooks. So having the PowerPoints is kind of your aftermath packet you can have, and then you'll get the video from today's training, and you could go through and make yourself cheat sheet notes if you want, those types of things. But that's kind of the goal, is that you get both so that you can be fully savvy in QuickBooks by the time we're done. Okay. So first thing we're going to do is get creating QuickBooks Online. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce over here. I personally like to work in Google Chrome. You can work in Safari if you have a Mac. You can work in Microsoft Edge if you'd like. Chrome is my preferred browser of choice. It is not something that has to be what you put on for QuickBooks Online, okay? So I'll just get into my main browser here. And obviously I have QuickBooks bookmarked because I use it a lot, but for training purposes today, we're going to go into QuickBooks Online. And I'm just going to Google it, okay? Big thing you want to look for is that you're finding a real QuickBooks Google, meaning that it has this green QB that they're known for, their logo, okay? If you click QuickBooks Online, it's going to bring you to their sales page, okay, for small businesses or accountants, okay? Obviously, today we're focused as a small business, and we're going to go down and choose our plans, okay? So right now they're running a promo. QuickBooks is 50% off for 3 months. This is great. So the Simple Start, which is usually my self-employed package, that's what we call it, is normally $35 plus tax. It's on sale right now for $17.50. I have no control over the sales that QuickBooks offers, by the way. Some organizations like small business development groups might get a deal with QuickBooks. Nonprofits get a deal with QuickBooks through TechSoup, so they probably won't go through this page. But just so you know, I have no can't change the pricing of it. So what they have on the site is what we have today. Okay. But what you want to look at is, what does this mean? Simple Start, the Plus, and the Advanced. So it tells us what's in these items, okay? Really big thing between Simple Start and Advanced that's a big deal, or Simple Start and Plus that's a big deal, is the users. So you as an owner are a user, okay? And then if you have an employee who is helping you, they're a user. Okay, so now we've got 2 users. If you then have an accountant, you get an accountant user in the self-employed, okay? So the problem would be is that you and your employee would need to both have credentials, and the Simple Start won't give you that ability. It has 1 user, okay? Why would I not want you to log in under the same credentials? Is because then you don't know who's doing the work, okay? And we'll talk more about that when we talk about users, accountants, and roles, okay? So if you had more than 1 person that needed to be logged in, then you have to go into the Plus. So, which stinks, I know, it is what it is. There's not a whole lot we can do about it, okay? The second thing that is really important is in the Simple Start, you don't have the bill pay feature. And it's listed down here, manage and pay bills. You don't have the bill pay feature in here, okay? So in the middle of the road package we call, you have the bill pay feature. So the bill pay feature is that you print checks because you have terms with your vendors that you're paying 30 days later, and you need to know how much that money looks like. And we will talk about that, not in this class so much, but in the next class, okay? Uh, you don't have multi-currency in Simple Start. A lot of us may or may not need that. That is an internal thing. Inventory is not really the best in QuickBooks in general, but the Simple Start doesn't have that feature. You don't have project costing, so the project profitability. So a lot of times I tell people, can you start with Simple Start? Absolutely. And we're going to do it for training purposes today. We're going to get Simple Start, okay? But 99% of the time, most of my people end in the middle of the road because they need some additional features, okay? But the goal of today is we're going to start with the basic. We'll show you how to upgrade when we start to need these features and go through that training process, okay? So first thing, I'm going to go ahead and select Simple Start. Then it's going to prompt us for payroll. We don't need payroll, so we don't continue without payroll. Now it tells me I'm saving $52.50 because it's 3 months of a discount, okay? So then you have to do an email address for this. And I'm using a random email for myself right now so that it doesn't flag that I already have an account. So we're on the same page, guys, okay? It wants a password of some sort, and then it wants my phone number. And by checking this box, I am ready to move forward, okay? And then the next step it's gonna want is it's gonna send us a code. Let's see here. 965,951. This is obviously their security settings. QuickBooks is also starting to try to use key authenticator codes as well. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing just long enough to put credentials in here. And then I'm gonna go back to sharing for us here. And then it wants my company address. And the more accurate you fill out this information, the better off you'll be, because this is information that's actually populating inside your QuickBooks, okay? Now it has wizards that it's gonna kind of walk us through to help us finish getting set up, okay? Because we're new to QuickBooks, we're gonna have wizards all over the place in every area that we kind of go through, okay? So it says legal name. So I'm gonna do excellent admin training. Then I'm gonna say nothing, I'm new to this. And then it wants an industry. Wants to know what type of entity we are. This is gonna prompt what type of accounts show. Um, for the simple start, most of the time you're either sole proprietors or S corps. Occasionally you get a C corp. I'm gonna do sole proprietor for training purposes today because I think that might be a majority of our group. And then this was like, how much do you generate in sales? So less than $1 million. What role are you? I'm obviously the owner or partner of this because we're creating it together. And then how many employees do I have? I personally have 2 to 5 employees. That might just be that you just have you. This is if you want to talk to an expert to help you in this process. Obviously, that's what I'm doing today, so we don't need to do that. And then it says, let's nail the basics. And again, we're going to go through all of this, so we don't necessarily need to do this. But let's do, I don't want to personalize invoices. We won't run payroll. Let's do this first. Link our bank accounts. And I'm going to hit skip for now so that it lets us get through these wizards. Because again, a lot of this we'll go through. But QuickBooks is trying to step up their game and help with everything. So it's a really big deal. And then now, got to be careful. Now it's trying to do payroll again. I don't want payroll, so let's not get tricked into getting payroll. So things you're looking for in QuickBooks. We're going to send and track invoices. We are going to manage sales tax. We're going to track sales. And that's about it, based on what's listed there anyways. Perfect. So now we're starting to see what we're looking at. We're into QuickBooks officially, okay? So if you get in QuickBooks and you're like, oh, this is awesome, right? This is our dashboard. This is our main screen. Every time you log in, this is going to be kind of what you see. So you can obviously add a logo. It's something that's customization. You've got this navigation bar here in the black. You've got this navigation bar that pops up, okay? If you're doing any integration, you've got this navigation bar that pops up. You've got this navigation bar that pops up, okay? So you have some options here. Then you have 3 tabs, customization and stuff like that. We have nothing inside of this QuickBooks right now. So because we have nothing inside of this QuickBooks right now, everything is kind of zeroed. All the data is going to be blank. Okay. So you're going to see this go from nothing to something as we obviously start to implement things. Okay. So now that we've signed up for QuickBooks, we have our first account. First thing we want to do, manage users. It's going to be really important. Users and accountants. Okay. So if we go to the gear icon here, and then underneath your company, there is manage users. So we are in Simple Start. So we get one user. It is going to be whomever set up the account is your main user. Okay. Then over here, you get accounting firms. So you can invite an accounting firm to join. Okay. It gives you one accounting firm and one user in this program. So again, if you have employees that log in for any area of your business, somebody does accounts receivable, somebody does payables, somebody does just the bookkeeping. You have a CPA that then takes all this data for tax prep and review, for tax planning quarterly, monthly, whatever it might be, right? Your accountant obviously has an ability to be here, but nobody else has the ability to be here except you in this package. Okay. So for me, in my organization, I need at least 2 users because I come in and I do the bookkeeping for my organization, but my husband handles all my invoicing, okay, because he works in the organization. So he needs to be able to get in QuickBooks in order to bill clients appropriately. So obviously, I have to add him as a user. So in this case, I would have to create an upgrade. Okay. Again, you as the owner want to be the primary admin. This is very important. Primary admin controls everything inside of QuickBooks, meaning you control if you can upgrade or downgrade your subscription only. You control adding and editing users. And then this shows that you own the data. Okay. Now, it's really easy to switch who is the primary admin. Okay. So if for some reason somebody helped you sign up for it and they accidentally became the primary admin, they can assign it to you. You get an email and accept that role. And then it's boom, it's transferred. Okay. I'm a big believer, you as owners, you should be the primary admin. And if you're not, we need to fix that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go through now the upgrading process so that we can then add a user so we can go through that step. Okay. Now, the good news with QuickBooks is that it's going to tell you what plan you're on and it's going to tell you what the next plan is. Okay. So Essentials is the next plan. That's going to be the one we need. We're going to choose this plan. It's going to tell you you're going to pay the difference. So at any point, if you upgrade, you're paying the difference from what you've already been credited. And then if you downgrade, you're going to be credited the difference based on their monthly total. Okay. This is a really easy one. We paid the $17.50, so they're crediting it off of, what this 65 plus taxes. And it's done the same day, so there's no additional credits than that. And it's as simple as hit change plan. Downgrading sometimes isn't as simple. Downgrading, sometimes you have to call them because it's an identity protection thing in order to downgrade. But when you click downgrade your plan, and if I choose a plan and I go through it, oh, it looks like it's going to actually let me do it. There's a specific phone number that comes up that you would call that only talks to the department for billing. So it's not a long wait time. You're not waiting for them to call you back. Those types of things. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. If you can't just go through it like we just did, they usually give you a phone number and allow you to help with somebody. Okay. So now it says we're in the essentials. We can see our payment history. You can downgrade. You could cancel if you decided. If you need to go up another level, we can go up another level. If you want to pay for it annually instead of monthly, you have that option too. By the way, there's no discount for the annual billing. So that's up to you if you want to pony out the money early or not. Okay. So now if we go back to users, manage users, now it says I can have 3 full access users. And see, now I can add a user instead of telling me to change my plan. So if I add a user, I'm going to add my husband just for training purposes today. Let's do. And then I can select a role for him. So he can have all access, he can have no access. He can only manage accounts receivable, only payables, limited to customers and vendors. Okay. In-house accountant, he can be a company admin, and he can track time only. I'm gonna make my husband a company admin because it's okay if he sees all of that. You then have another layer down here to show additional permissions that you guys can edit. So you can see all the things based on what he has access to. Now, because I'm making him a company admin, he has access to everything. Every box and everything is going to be checked, right? But if I change this to just an accounts receivable manager, he's going to have access to most of the sales things. He's going to have access to products and services. Let's see how he's got access now. So it tells you what he does or does not have access to. Now, if you err on the side of caution, meaning it's a new employee, you don't want them to see your bank account balances, you want to be kind of picky about that, give them the access you think they need, let them get in. When they run into a problem where they can't access something they need, then change their access to give them more. You can always start from the bottom, work your way up while you're figuring out what those accesses are. Okay. If you just give everybody the world, they'll obviously be able to access everything all the time. That's a trust thing inside of your organization. We'll tell you if this person is coming in to help you with your financial side of your business, you should probably already have trusted them. So it shouldn't be a huge deal. But not everybody needs to see everything. Money creates green monsters, is what I tell people. So I encourage you to set it based on what you think is right in your organization. So I am going to go back and make him a company admin just so that it has everything kind of checked for me. And then I'm going to send the invite. So now you can see there are two. Okay. So after these two, I can, drop here once he's accepted it. And I can see that he is not just an invite, that he's accepted it. And then obviously you can delete users from here if you needed to. If you needed to see their activity, see how often they log in, that's the benefit of QuickBooks Online. And another feature as to why you want to have everybody have their accounts is you can see what they're doing. So if something is categorized improperly or something got deleted or something got moved, you know who did it and when it was done. That's the important part here. Okay. So you can go back and fix it if it needs to be fixed. If it's a training issue internally, we could get the training issue fixed. If it was an accident, we can figure out why the accident happened and try to be proactive that way. So you have a lot of options here with that. Okay. Now accountants get added they get added in the same bucket here, but they get different access. So an accountant account allows them to see both what you can see and what they can see. There's some additional tools. They're called accountant tools. The accountant doesn't have any limits. There's no, oh, you don't get to see this, you don't get to see that. They see everything. Okay. Accountants can lock your QuickBooks, so can primary admins. So you can close the year so people can't mess with data in a previous year. You can close a month so people can't access data in a previous month. So some of those things come into play. Things that only accountants tools have. Only accountants tools have a recategorization option where they can mass move transactions. Only accountants can undo reconciliations. I don't know why that is that way, but that is the way it is. So if you ever needed to do that, when we talk about reconciliations in the next class, we'll bring it up again. In the nonprofit one, only accountants can see a task list to close out every month. Okay. So sometimes there are specialty tools as an accountant that they get. But primary admins have 98% of the same tools. Okay. So again, just goes into play there. It looks like we might have some questions. So let me pull up our questions here and see what we've got.
And there was one question asking if I use the simple start, do I still need a tax accountant? I did answer it. I told them that I would ask you, but I told them that's always a good idea to have a accountant in your wings.
Yeah, as a simple start person and you are used to doing your tax return with like what would be a Schedule C, it's totally okay to do it yourself. Um, the accountant is just another set of eyes. I even encourage people to use somebody like myself to do the bookkeeping, but then have an accountant do the tax return. That just means you looked at it, the bookkeeper looked at it, and the accountant looked at it, and everything's passed the IRS regulation sniff test, is what we call it. And so you're in really good standards if anything flagged for audit purposes and things like that. Um, that's a total preference to you. Yep, Ed, I would absolutely agree with that answer.
And someone else asked if uh, was there a 30-day free trial that you went over at the beginning?
It didn't, it was 50% off for it. There's a free trial for their consultants if you want to have a call with them, that show in your subscriptions. But there sometimes QuickBooks offers 30 days free. The offers that were on the page today were not that. There is a trial for the live expert assistant. That's a 30-day trial.
And then Amanda had a question if about taking over an existing QuickBooks account, becoming a new admin. Is there a way to see how the account was set up?
Yes, so if you go up under manage users, you'll see who is the admin now. And then, you know what, here, let me jump into my email that I sent the QuickBooks invite to, and I can show you how you can do that real quick. So here's what the invite looks when you get it in, when you invite somebody. Getting it to send me a code because 510418. Let's see here. So now that the second person has accepted the QuickBooks, let me refresh here. So I have a company admin and a primary admin. So now over here, I have lots of options. View activity log. I saw that was in the chat. How did we get to that again? You would click here. So you can see that that it was signed in. They accepted the invite, obviously. Okay. And then if you needed to take ownership from Anne, then you would hit make primary admin. It says, are you sure you want to do that? And you can say change primary admin. And then an email is going to come through again over here. Give it a second to come through. And it says you are granted primary admin privileges. You have to accept the role or decline the role. Okay. So if you're taking on somebody's QuickBooks and they're a primary admin, they need to go through that process with you to grant you to be the primary admin. Then you have to go in and click here, accept. Okay. Training purposes, I'm going to hit decline because I don't want to make my husband the primary admin at the moment. And then it says it has been rejected. Okay. And go back over here. But once you hit accept, then it switches automatically and everything switches. The only thing you're going to see is on this screen that's going to say that it's any different if you're company admin level. If your level is substantially different than a company admin as you're taking over, then you're going to see probably a lot more data there. Okay, great question. Spends a lot, but that's the big one. And it's a really, again, a really easy process as long as the emails that are in here are actively used emails. It makes life a lot easier. Okay.
Yeah,
Any other questions on that?
you have a few more questions. One of them, well, a couple of them have to do with there are any similar programs that are less expensive or free versus QuickBooks.
There are some different programs that can be used. FreshBooks is one that is well known. It is not, it used to be free. It is not free from what I understand now. A lot of times it depends on the industry you're in. So landscapers tend to use a software called Yardbook. It specializes in their industry. Uh, Renters, real estate owners tend to use a software called Stessa. Again, that is free up to a certain point. FreshBooks is another one I see in the industry. That being said, these softwares lack a balance sheet. And so you have to produce a balance sheet, which, if you're a small company with no debt, is really easy to do. As your company grows, not so much. But they produce at least a profit and loss statement for you. And then you can work with an accountant, or if you're savvy enough to know how to create your own balance sheet, you can create your own balance sheet.
There are a few other questions. One of them is how do you link your bank account? How do you get to the audit log? Can you see
The
what?
audit log we kind of reviewed again. It's just with the up arrow here. The bank account we'll get to later in the class when we actually set up our bank account. It'll be after our first little break, so we will get to that.
If you decide to quit at any time, if you no longer need, I'm not sure what the question is from Teresa here. Can you quit at any time if you no longer need?
Like
So,
QuickBooks, you can cancel your subscription, yes. Your data will remain inside of QuickBooks for 1 year in order to give you the ability to port the data down and keep it safe somewhere if you would like. After 1 year, it is gone.
see, the last question I'm seeing is if you have a simple start QuickBooks that was started at a higher level by the accountant, then changed to simple start, where do you go to confirm whether I'm now the primary admin?
So under Simple Start, if you are the person logging in, you probably are the primary admin, but it's under just manage users. And it's only going to show you as the user, which makes you the primary admin in Simple Start. So as long as it shows you and not the accountant, then you are the primary admin.
Okay. I think that's
And then I saw one from Barb. Is there a way that the owners can see what the accountant has looked at or changed?
right, right.
If you look at the accountant's log, yes. So same area, quick way to get it based on what we've covered so far today. I will show you over the course of additional trainings, other ways to see the audit logs because you can see it based on transactions. But if you go to accountant and once you've added an accountant and see it, they have the same drop down arrow here where you can see the audit log. Usually accountants tend to give you what they've adjusted, because a lot of times they're doing like year-end adjustments, which would be journal entries for depreciation, amortization, maybe it's a mileage or your food deduction, to adjust the QuickBook to match what the tax return says is a lot of times what accountants are doing on a high level. Michelle, who has access to the audit logs? Everybody who is a user has access to an audit log to an extent, but pretty much the only people that can see everybody's activity on everything, because if you have somebody that just has accounts receivable, they can look at audit logs for accounts receivable, which probably would majority be them. They're not going to be able to see any of the other areas. So the only ones that have access to everything are primary and company admins and accountants. Accountants can see pretty much everything. If you delete an accountant, is it easy to add back a new accountant? Yes. just as simple as if you look at users here on accountants, it's the same thing. You would hit delete and then it would prompt you to add another accountant. Ellen, it is only the advanced that offers forecasting and projections. Nonprofits tend to get that too, because they're at usually the higher level QuickBooks. Shirley, we'll talk about that as we get working on getting accounts synced in here. Trisha, let me go back up and see your question about an LLC. Trisha, can you redrop that question for the LLC and I'll make sure to answer that? Carly, are you talking about QuickBooks Desktop Pro? It is different, yes. It's simpler, not as customizable, different buttons, stuff in different places. So yes, sadly it is different. These webinars are from 9 to noon. Christine, QuickBooks can print 1099s. We'll talk about that when we talk about contractors in a later class. So, Trisha, usually the LLC means you are a sole proprietor unless you've opted it to file as a small corporation, or a partnership. So you would still select sole prop as an LLC. Ellen, I will show the 1099s based on the middle of the road package we're on now when we get to that in the topic. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to pause questions for now so we can move on. I don't want to get too far behind here. So the next topic we want to talk about is our dashboard. Okay, so I'm going to go here to our dashboard. So again, our dashboard at this point I want to show you is going to be very basic. There's no data yet. And then I'm going to show you before we get off the call today what it looks like after we've implemented some data in here. Okay. So your home, you have some customization here. You can determine how big you want it, what things you want to see, your shortcuts. These will get customized based on what you're doing. If you want to show bank balances on your home screen, I will tell you I've had clients that don't like this and they want to trash it because if they have somebody that comes around their screen to look, they can see what their bank balances are and they don't need people to know that information. You can autofill bills, transactions by uploading, and then it shows profit, loss, expense, yada, yada, some graphs, okay? By customizing it, you can delete things you don't want. So for example, I'm gonna trash this one just so that you can see what it does. I'm gonna trash a task list because I don't need that. I want my shortcuts. Bank balances are okay for what we're doing today. I want the autofill, I want the profit and loss, the expenses, and my trending is to show, okay? So I'm gonna hit save. My widget looks like what I want to see. Again, no data yet until we start implementing that process, okay? Then you have cash flow. Again, this will show you based on what's in your bank. How are you tracking with money? These are fake numbers right now because we don't have anything in. Green means money in. Blue means money out. It tells you a key right here, and it'll be obviously based on your stuff. Again, you can see what's overdue invoicing if we use that feature, you know, what you've got if you've got bills outstanding. So these are nice little visuals if that's set up based on the type of accounting you're doing to give you snapshots of where your business is at. Obviously, as soon as you enter a transaction, they change. That's the nature of accounting. The financials you're given is only a snapshot at that ending time at that moment before somebody else gets in there and does something, okay? And then you have a planner tab. We won't get much into the planner tab because we aren't going to use this because it's not a resource that's included in this module. It's a way for them to get you to upgrade. Okay. You also will have, where's my, here we go. You also have an apps dashboard. Again, this is for integration purposes. We will talk about this in a later course. And then technically, if you go into any of these different modules, if you see how the bars pop up on the sides, they all have dashboards or home screens that then allow you to click into other things. Okay. Any questions about the dashboard right now? Okay, awesome. Then let's talk about chart of accounts and uploading chart of accounts and how that kind of looks, works, because there's a couple ways to do it. So over here under transactions, click here, you have a chart of accounts button, okay? The other thing you do if you just click transactions, it brings you here and you have the same items that were in that pop-up bar are listed right here, okay? So you have a chart of accounts. Now, we have chart of accounts in here already because QuickBooks took the information we did when we set up the account to tell them what we did and put in the best of their ability of accounts, okay? So these are what I would call bare bones accounts. And I encourage you to look at these accounts and not create duplicate accounts and take advantage of the ones you can and not of the ones you can't. Okay. Some of these accounts, they will not allow you to archive. Some of them they will. So you could get them out of your list if you do not want to see them. You also can edit these accounts to change the names. So a lot of times meals and entertainment or memberships and softwares. People like to call them dues and subscriptions. And meals and entertainment is no longer deductible. So they're probably going to just call it meals. You know what I mean? And then you might have team meals versus, meals with potential clients, and the deduction rate is different based on what you're doing with that. Okay. So let me hit refresh since QuickBooks does not want to load the screen at the moment. So now you can see. So you have a name. These are the things you can edit. The name, you can edit the type, you can edit the detail type, and then obviously it balances as of right now, everything is 0. Okay. So the first account I personally would get rid of is this cash account. I'm not going to play with petty cash in what we're going to do for training purposes. And when I link my bank account, I'm going to name it something different. So I want to make this account inactive. And it says, are you sure you want to deactivate this account? Deactivating it does not delete it out of QuickBooks. It just does not allow me to select it. Okay. So if you archive an account and then someday down the road you needed it back, you would go in and reactivate the account and it would populate again. Okay. And I will show you how to do that in obviously additional customization features we do later. Okay. So accounts receivable we'll definitely use. Inventory we're not going to use. I'll leave it for now. Loans to others depends. Payments to deposit, this is your undeposited funds account. So when you receive a payment from an invoice, it goes into undeposited funds. If you have prepaid expenses, the list goes on. I'm not going to go line by line for all of them, but your basic accounts are in here. Health insurance, personal, HSA, state estimated tax payments, refunds to customers. You've got a sales account for income. You've got these 4 buckets, cost of goods sold, so on and so on. Okay. So these are just the things that are in here. Now, can you create and edit anything you want? Absolutely. We can click new and we can name an account, anything we want. So let's do for payroll, let's do company payroll taxes. And then down here, we're going to select an account type, which should be an expense. And then under the detail type, we want it to be payroll. This detail type is just acclimating where it goes on the financial statement. So if you don't, everything will default to advertising and marketing. I can show you because I'll do another one. If we do wages, wages and salaries, and I go to expense, boom, advertising and marketing. But I don't want my wages and salaries to be lumped into an advertising and marketing or mixed in with those expenses, right? I want it to be with my payroll expenses. So you have to select that. Another one I would do would be BWC, workers' comp. We just got to pay that sometimes. And again, I'm going to lump that into payroll expenses because that is a cost associated with payroll. If you use a service, whether it's QuickBooks, Paychecks, ADP, Gusto, Paycor, whatever it is, right? You have payroll processing fee. Another one I probably would do is obviously utilities. So we're going to have, let me search because it might be here. Let's see. Telephone. Nope. Okay. So for utilities, your telephone expense needs to be separate. So telephone, it's still going to be an expense. And then now I want to select under utilities. And then you might have internet. So you guys get the point. I'm just creating accounts that I know are not in there that I know we probably will use as customization features, okay? So you can do it that way. The other way you could do is you can import. So it will accept a Excel file, CSV, or if you use Google Sheets, QuickBooks Online has worked with Google to be able to import Google Sheets data, okay? So you could go in and do this. So if you want to do a Google Sheet, let me stop sharing for 1 second. Let me make sure I have a Google Sheet we can use. And the benefit of using a sheet that you might be bringing in, it obviously will tell you what the duplicates are. So you won't make the mistake twice. So let me go back to sharing here. Sorry about that, guys. Share. So here's the Google Sheet. I called it training sheet for us. We can work with this. So then go back over here to chart of accounts. I want to hit connect. And then we are in A#. You got to give it access to do all the things just like we would anything else. Sheet. Select. It is only sheet 1. Account name. I don't want these to be income though. Let's see. See what it was. So then it gives you all the names. So commercial discounts given, we'll spot check over here. Commercial discounts given, residential total income. So all of that's here. And then you have to tell it what type of account you want it to be. So these are going to be income accounts. So income, there we go. QuickBooks is freezing. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so you can do that. And then if you want a detail type, I'm gonna just do other miscellaneous income. Oh, it's got service fees. Let's see. Oh, income. Service fee, right? And then I'm going to hit import. It's only going to bring in the couple so it said imported 2 of 37 transactions. I just wanted you to see both options, okay? This is the screen you're going to get if you upload like an Excel file as well. It's going to import the data from Excel and then bring you to this sheet. And you still have to, this is called mapping. You still have to map where the data is going. Okay. But this gives you an opportunity to not have to like add all these accounts, right? And again, that's why it's important to review what's in so you don't add duplicate accounts. A lot of times it's going to tell you that it's there, and it will prompt you to merge them to try to maybe save this step, okay? And you could do it, you could load the whole chart of accounts and only implement the ones you think you actually need. You saw I did 2 of the 37 we're trying to upload right now. You could do the same thing and be picky on which ones you want, okay? If you go through and you want more of them and only a few you don't want, you just uncheck the ones you don't want. And you can do the same thing. And then they gray out. You don't fill anything out. It's not going to give you the red air like I got and only tell you it only did a few. Okay. So those are the couple ways that we can do it. So arrow import can be an Excel file, can be a Google sheet. Either way, you have to map the data anyways. You could just click new and manually type the data in. Totally your preference. Any questions about chart of accounts? Okay. We're going to take our first little short break. I'm going to give us about 15 minutes before we come back. We'll take a 30 minutes total between, but we'll take 15 minutes now and 15 minutes after we do lots of talking after the next 4 sections. So this is your time. If you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We will answer those first when we come back. And then I will see you guys in a short 15 minutes. Okay, guys, we're getting ready to jump back in. Okay, so now we're going to talk about reviewing reports because we didn't have any questions. So let me just
And there are some
oh,
questions.
I see this. I see it in the Q&A. Sorry about that, guys.
That's okay.
So
There's a few in the questions too.
okay, perfect. So Amanda said if we're taking over an existing QuickBooks account, becoming the new admin, is there a way to see how the account was set up? Amanda, tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. Are you looking to see if it's like an S corp, sole proprietor, what they do from a filing perspective? You know, give me a little more detail if you wouldn't mind. Neil, no, we were just on a short break. And then Joseph said, I just visited TechSoup page. They are no longer offering any types of discounts that I could find. Did anyone else find anything different regarding the discounts or free nonprofit solutions? Joseph, I was just in TechSoup last week. No, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And they renewed this like offer that my client had, which was that they paid $80 to have it for the whole year, which is obviously a substantial discount. But I didn't poke around in there to see what the offers were now because they obviously were just renewing a subscription. If you want, if you want to send me an email after the class or whatever, I will absolutely take a peek at it. I can log in between appointments this afternoon and see if I can't find some additional information that might be able to help you with that. Amanda, that does make sense. So how you could see that um, is underneath this gear icon here. Go to accounts and settings. And you're going to see company info, usage, payments, sales, expenses. All these customizations will tell you the detail you're looking for amongst this module. So it would show you company info, phone numbers, things you can edit. If it needs an EIN, make sure the address is correct. If you have a website, put that in. Contact email for customers is important to understand. The tax info. Payments are obviously if you're taking payments from clients through QuickBooks. I will not turn this module on here for this training purposes today, but they do have an option to do that. It's going to show you your usage. So how many users are being used of your chart of accounts are being used. If you go under sales, it gives you some options for invoicing. Some are included, some say activate because they're not included, or we haven't set up as of yet. Expenses, bill and expenses, purchase orders, you would have to upgrade to have those. If you're using a time thing. And then under advanced is where you can see like what your accounting methods are, cash accrual, types of forms that are being filed, so it knows what to tell you. If you want to use account numbers, obviously nonprofits tend to use account numbers. If you want stuff to pre-fill or not, currency, if you're using multi-currency, all these things tell you kind of what's going on with the QuickBooks already. All right, so then let me go over to the chat. Let's see here. Let's see here. Very cool. Here. Okay. How can you add dashboard widgets back later? Again, you hit go to dashboard. You just hit customize. It goes down to, there are ones that you've deleted already. And you can add them back up. Jane asked, what is the purpose of the dashboard? Is it the overview screen? Yes, it is correct. Ellen, sometimes you can delete. Most of the time they just make you archive. Archive or inactive are the same thing as deleting in QuickBooks Size. The time you cannot delete is when there's been data in them prior. Says when you use the expert, do you have to use them every month or can you pay as you need their services? Tina, this is actually a question I don't know the answer to as I've not used the experts. From what I've seen in the past in converting clients, it looked like it was a subscription that you paid every month for their services, not a need as you go. So Jane asks, I'm a sole proprietor and every month I use an Excel income and expense form for tax purpose. Is QuickBooks necessary? What is the benefit for me as a sole proprietor consultant? Jane, really the big benefit here is for lending purposes. A lot of times the banks don't like an Excel sheet. They want an actual accounting software. In an Excel sheet, you can't technically do a bank reconciliation. So when it comes to being audited, you wouldn't have the ability to have a layer of protection there. So if you got audited, the auditors would want every receipt, every statement, for every transaction on that Excel sheet. So it's a lot of data you would have to give, where if you use an accounting software, they look in the software first, they see that it's reconciled and might then only ask for statements before they're going to start asking for individual receipts. So those are the two benefits. You could absolutely, pending your size of your organization, do an Excel income and expense sheet, no problem. That some, like I said, some people for lending purposes don't take that information and want a more legit accounting software. That's a personal preference to you. If you want to reach out one-on-one, I'm happy to have maybe a little more conversation after seeing what you're doing to see if I can give you a little bit more guidance. So if you are looking for the import process from QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop to QuickBooks Online, that is not how it works. There's actually a conversion process that needs to be done in desktop to merge to QuickBooks Online. Catherine, I will encourage you to reach out to me individually. That can be a very uh, elaborate process, to say the least, and you're going to lose some features that you might not want to lose in that process. So we might want to talk that through. It wouldn't take very long to show you the steps to do the conversion. It's not something I'm going to teach on today's class. As a matter of fact, it's not something I teach in any of the classes, as that's a one-on-one basis. You would not even need to go through the first step we talked about today, which is to create QuickBooks, because you're going to already have a QuickBooks account for what you have with your desktop registered. You just have to go through the conversion process there. So it's really elaborate. Surely we'll talk about categorizing charges, payments, all that kind of stuff when we get data integrated in here. So that is going to happen more so on the next class. I will not be talking about moving the desktop to QuickBooks Online in this class at all. Hey, you can contact QuickBooks directly and absolutely ask for the nonprofit discount. In my previous experience, if you are already registered for QuickBooks, and you're not in the nonprofit one already, they do make you start over, meaning you have to pull that data out of there to put you in the proper subscription. They did not make it seem, working with somebody less than 6 months ago, make it seem like that they could move your data over. We actually had to rebuild the whole file. Aurora says, I have more than one company. Is there a way to set up one account and keep track of all of them? Uh, good business practice is no. Could it be done? Sure. But you need to be in the highest level QuickBooks, because you're going to need classifications in order to classify each individual business as a class. That's a one-on-one thing. If you want to reach out to me once you have my contact information at the end, I'm happy to go over that with you. Donna says, if you start QuickBooks today, would you be able to add all the data from the beginning of the year? The answer is yes. Yes, receipts can be photographed and maintained in QuickBooks. We will talk about that on the next class. I have not heard of found. Greg, sadly, I don't know what Waves Apps is. I'd have to do some research. I'd happy to do that with you, or if you want to show me what you have, and then we can go over what the benefits might be one way or the other. If all your businesses are under one LLC, why are you keeping track of them separately, Antoinette? That would be my question. Because at the end of the year, they all go on the same tax return. All the data gets merged together as one lump sum number. Okay, no problem. Okay, I think I got all the questions. If I missed any questions that got dropped in the chat, guys, just as a friendly reminder, can we put them in the Q&A? The only reason for that is the chat obviously has a lot of activity going on, and so it's hard for me. If somebody types something, it jumps me back down to the bottom, and then I've lost where I'm at the top. If you put them in the Q&A, I can mark that they were answered, and then they go away, so it keeps things a little bit more organized. Just as a catch-all, because I don't want to miss anything. If I do miss your stuff, please try to poke me and ask me about it. I'm really happy to answer any questions that I can that apply to what we're talking about today. It's just hard to follow inside the chat with a group of your size. I appreciate it, guys.
Good idea, and that's an excellent idea. Hey, for those of you that are asking about where to find the recording, it is I posted directions to get there, but basically you go to a score.org website, and at the top right there's a menu. You click on workshops and events, and then click on recorded. It's pretty easy. I'm not sure when it's going to be posted there, but it'll be there probably by next week sometime. So thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to move right along. So we're going to talk about reviewing reports. Again, I'm going to show you the reports blank, and then I'm going to show you the reports as we are going to start stepping into doing setting up our bank account and integrating. Okay. So underneath our black navigation bar here off to the left, you want to click on reports. You can customize reports. I know a lot of people that need certain things for board members and stuff like that. So you can customize reports. You can look at management reports. We're going to play in standard reports only because the majority of us being self-employed people are really going to look at these three favorited reports right here. You use accounts receivable, how much money's coming in, who owes you what, how long does it take to collect? That's going to be a big one. Balance sheet, again, how much cash do I have in the bank? What are my debts? What are my assets? And then obviously my owner's equity accounts and retained earnings type of thing. Okay. And then your profit and loss. So this is the money you're bringing in now versus the expenses you're spending out. And are we making any money? Okay. Those are going to be the three reports that most people use. Okay. There is a payables report that a lot of people will use if we use the bill pay feature. That you can add to your favorites. So the best part about this is these are QuickBooks generic. They know these are the three things we're going to use all the time. Okay. Based on what everybody in the world is using trending wise. So if you go down here, you can add any of these reports you want by clicking boom. And now you've got another report. And again, it's as easy as getting rid of it. Now, my login can have my own favorited reports, and your staff or accountant who logs in can have their own favorited reports. And it doesn't mess up what your favorited reports are. These are individualized based on login. Okay. So if you accidentally click something you're not supposed to, then obviously there could be an issue there. I tend to like the comparison reports. We won't be able to do a whole lot of comparison because we're not doing 2 years worth of data. But if your business has been in business more than 1 year, obviously this comparison data would be important. What did I do last April compared to April this year? What am I trending to do last May? So I know what my May this year might look like, or did I grow? You know, those types of things. So that would be where the comparison report comes in. Okay. So profit and loss, if you click on it, you have a lot of navigation here. So it automatically defaults to this year to date. That's totally fine. Okay. It's going to show you income. Again, we have nothing in QuickBooks yet. We haven't integrated anything or entered any transactions yet. So all these reports are zero. Okay. You're going to have costs of goods sold. Then you have your gross profit. Then you're going to have expenses. Okay. Then you have net income. Then you have other expenses and whatever else. Okay. So you're going to see this report go from nothing to something because our next step is going to be setting up our bank account. Okay. You can change this very easily here by this week, today, this month, this quarter, month to date, those types of things. You can also change the dates here and click from here to here, maybe here. You can see it accrual or cash. Accrual is when you have all your invoices included in your income number, even if they're not paid, and you have all your bills included in your expenses, even if they're not paid. Cash is only things that are paid that you've actually received and only bills that you have paid out. Okay. So a lot of us are probably cash method, not accrual. The reason it matters is your income number will be inflated if you pull it by accrual, and you might be like, gosh, I don't have that much money in the bank. It doesn't always say apples to apples that way, but cash is what you've received. Accrual is what you are tentatively going to receive. Okay. So that's why I do that. And then you have other filter options here. You know, what do you want to see in your data? Are you looking up a specific customer, specific vendor, a specific product? Are you using classifications? You know, is there things you're trying to divide by? Do you want to display certain things? Do you want to compare? So you have all these customization features here too as well. This is the new view. Those of you that are like, this doesn't look like what mine looks like. If you switch back to the classic view, this might be what you're more looking at. Again, same premise of buttons here, same time frame of here, you know, same data, just looks a little bit different. They're trying to make it, I don't want to say fancy, that's probably not the right word, but it looks a little more fancier in the next, you know, in the new view versus the old view. I work in QuickBooks all day, every day for the most part, and I've got people in both. So I can't tell you one way or the other. I mean, we created the account today and I still have the ability to look at it in a classic view. So I'm not guaranteed to be one view versus the other. Okay. So definitely something to kind of look at. So the next thing we want to talk about is setting up our bank accounts. So let's integrate a bank account. Okay. So QuickBooks Online's entire premise is integration. Okay. That being said, not every bank integrates with QuickBooks. They don't all play nice. For example, if you bank at Huntington Bank, if you have a company login that has a digital token or a key fob token, you cannot integrate. There is no login credentials for that authentication. And you would then need to use the import feature or manually enter it. Okay. If you bank at small credit unions, sometimes they don't have the ability to integrate. Okay. If you work at or if you're with smaller credit card companies, they might not either. The first one that comes to mind is like Credit One Bank. They do not integrate with QuickBooks based in my experience of what I've worked with. Okay. I've not worked with every bank all across the country, across the globe. It's few and far between that I see are problem childs. Okay. The benefit of the integration is there is a lesser of a risk of duplicate transactions, duplicate data. Okay. It's less work when it's integrated. You set it up once, it stays syncing for at least a year before banks tend to push through privacy settings, and then you've got to upload it or update it. Or if you change your password, you have to re-update your password, those types of things. So it stays integrated. If you're importing, you have to be very strategic about remembering when you imported last so you don't overlap too far, because QuickBooks will catch some of it, but it doesn't catch all of it. And then you got to do it month by month. Like I would import today for last month so that I know that I imported on the first and that type of thing. You will see in QuickBooks, because I will show you both ways, that it will log the date you imported last. That doesn't mean, even if you know that date, that there isn't still a risk for overlap. Okay. Also, when you import data, it doesn't always match to data you might have already had in QuickBooks. Like if you mark an invoice paid and then you import the data, it might not take the transaction from when the deposit was made in the bank to what you marked paid. Okay. So I'm just telling you the manual side of it is a little bit more work and can be a little bit risky in errors that can happen versus importing. But I understand people are like, I don't want my bank account to be linked here. I totally get that. But that is the entire premise of QuickBooks Online, is everything to be integrated. Okay. So do with it as you will. I will show both ways today. We will obviously work based on case by case basis on that. Okay. So we're going to go into transactions. And when you're working with the bank, credit cards, line of credits, auto loans, any debt you might have, those all are going to be under bank transactions regardless. You will tell QuickBooks in the import process what type of account it is. Okay. Or in the integration process, what type of account it is. Okay. So down here, we want to link a bank account. Sure do. Got to start somewhere, right? So it gives you a list of accounts here. You can see more. You can obviously use the search feature. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to search for American Express. And I'm going to hit continue. I have my password saved. You guys may or may not, obviously. And again, every bank account is different. Some banks will let you import all the way back to 24 months. In this stage here, some of it will let you manually import it back to 3 years. Some banks only let you do 90 days. Okay, PNC is my 90-dayer. It will only let you go back 90 days in the rears. So you got to stay on top of that type of thing. Okay. And pending how many transactions you're downloading, depends on how long this process takes. We're going to do this process a couple times. This is a credit card that we're doing first. Then we're going to do a bank account. And then we'll do a line of credit. Just for simplicity purposes, we'll do the 3. And again, wizards, and hit done. So now I have 99 plus transactions. It's going to continue to load them. You have this wizard here. We can X out of this for now. You can see that it's still loading the transactions. Updated tells me, like I said, it tells you when it was updated a moment ago. Okay. You can click update at any time if you feel like stuff's not coming through. Usually QuickBooks Online is within a day of you swiping your card as a debit card for a transaction. You'll see it within a day inside of QuickBooks. Okay. Same way you kind of see stuff automated in your bank account, that's kind of that way. So then I'm going to flip this because it didn't actually prompt us to bring back as far, but it looks like it brought us back all the way to January. So this one did the whole shebang for us. So 4 months worth of data. That's perfect. That's what I would want if we were building something today, or even starting this year. You want to go back to the current year you're in as far as filing status would go. Okay. That would be my professional opinion. Anything prior you can do, but you might have already done. So just something to think about. Okay. Now we've got one account in here. I don't like the name of this account. I don't know what my business goal is. So I want to edit account info. And I want to call this Amex. And then I tend to put the last 4 of the account number. This is because if you have more than one American Express, more than one Chase card, more than one bank account, you want to make sure that you're not confusing yourself into what account you're working in. So let's make it simple. Okay. Type of account is a credit card. Detail of account is a credit card. So this is all fabulous. Okay. Then we need to add another account. So let's link another account. All right, let me stop sharing for 1 second so I can type in the credentials for this one because I don't have a securely saved one. I apologize, guys. So we want to click this one. We're going to implement this account. We're going to call this a checking account. And then we're going to look at line of credit here because we said we were going to do an LOC. So we're going to click None of these options technically apply. We're gonna click credit card for now. Will this one give me a different option? Nope, okay. And then this here, this one bank tells me how far back to pull it. We're gonna pull back for this year at this point, but it does give me the option I could have went as far as last year. Okay, so we'll do this year. We're gonna click connect. So this time, really a line of credit and a bank account. And again, it's doing its thing, trying to bring everything in. This process can be long or quick, depending how many transactions you have or how far back you're going. Perfect. And then we're gonna do remind me later. And let's go back into our transaction tab. And now we've got, again, more bank accounts here. So again, I don't like these names of these accounts because I wouldn't know what they were. I want to make them my internal names. So this would be operating account for me. It is a bank account. It is checking. That's correct. We're gonna hit save. And then this one, oh, add it here. I want to edit my account info here. This is LOC. If I can spell today for you. And then I'm gonna see if I can make this long-term liability. Yes. And whoops. This wants it to be a cash account. It will not let me do this. Huh. Well, QuickBooks apparently is not liking my long-term liabilities. So we're gonna stick this back to credit cards for now. We'll face that battle here shortly because it's not going to show the reporting properly that way. Oh, it didn't change my name. Hold on, let me. Yeah, it did. Okay. Just didn't change it on the screen. So let me hit refresh so that changes there so we can see the name change. Perfect. So these can be anything you want. Again, I keep the last four just for simplicity purposes, makes my life easier. Okay. Again, it tells you how many transactions, when it was updated. Okay. And then just click out of the wizard below. And then we're going to be working in the categorize tab. That's going to be where you're at. Everything is for review. So we've integrated it now. It's going to sync automatically until further notice, or it tells us there's an error. Okay. And it will tell you if there's an error. You will not only get an email that there's an error, you will also get warning bubbles all over the place. Okay. So everything goes into the for review tab. Just because it's in for review does not mean it shows on your financial statements. Nothing is populating on the P&L until we've actually taken this data from for review and it goes into categorized. Okay. So the integration piece is bringing the data in, but we still have to tell QuickBooks what to do with the data. Now, QuickBooks is going to try to help you in this process. It is not always right. It is probably going to be wrong more than it's going to be right, just so we're on the same page. And that confuses people a lot. They're like, well, this isn't this. The things QuickBooks might be really good at. If you go to Chipotle, Millions of people go to Chipotle. It knows Chipotle is meals and entertainment. Okay. But it doesn't know what you bought on PayPal, or it doesn't know what um, a payroll service provider would be. That's not its payroll service, right? So just keep in mind as you're looking at what this data means, it's the goal is that you correct all of the data house. Okay. So we set up our bank account. So now we need to go over what does that mean when it comes to categorizing? How do we know where stuff goes? What are the regulations? There are a ton of customization features in this process on what your business does, what you're trying to see, what type of ratios you might be trying to run, that type of thing. And so, again, we're going to talk about that. So let me take a brief break. Let's look at the questions we have before we dive into the next section. The next section is actually on the PowerPoint slides, not inside of QuickBooks, because we're going to talk about what the IRS standard categorizations are and what goes in those buckets based on those names. Okay. So it did look like we had some questions. So let me go over to the Q&A here. Gwen says, how do you go to account settings? It's this gear icon next to your initial of your name and then account and settings. Jane asks, she says she's a sole proprietor. She does income expense sheet for tax purposes. Is QuickBooks Simple Start even necessary? And what is the benefit for me? Jane, I did answer this question earlier, I believe. But really it comes down to lending purposes and audits. If you use an Excel sheet and you get audited, they're going to want every receipt, every bank statement, every credit card statement for any transaction that's inside of that. Where if you use an accounting software, they're going to ask for the accounting software first and then ask for additional items after they've reviewed the accounting software. So it can be a layer of protection of having to produce all the individual data. Obviously, as a business owner, you probably have it, so it's not a huge thing. And then I can tell you that there are banks that don't want Joe Schmo financials. They want something in an accounting software when it comes to interim financials, lending, those types of things. But that's on a case by case basis, bank by bank basis. Destiny, there is no certificate offered. I do not work for Intuit. I run my own firm, so I can't do that on behalf of QuickBooks. Sorry. Pamela, you didn't catch the answer to the question. Will you please drop the question again? Jane, QuickBooks is very forgiving. There is nothing you can do inside of QuickBooks that can't be undone. So do not worry about putting something in the wrong bucket. That can be easily moved. Do not worry about deleting something. It can be undone. Don't worry about any of that. And not only that, it has tons and tons and tons of warnings when you're doing something that it thinks you shouldn't be doing. And it'll say QuickBooks will let you do this, but this isn't really the way it's done. So don't panic. It is very user friendly for that reason. I will go over some of that as well. We don't cover inventory very well in any of these sessions, but that would be in the last session. The sessions are this Thursday, next Thursday, following Thursday. And the reason for that is that QuickBooks Online does not handle inventory very well. So we talk about it briefly. I show you what they have to offer in the third session, but it is not something that's covered in detail. Hey, Ed, Pamela has a question about a noon webinar.
Yeah, I'm not sure. We do not have a noon webinar. So if there's another one out there, then you'll be able to log on to it. It would be on the score.org website. If you go to the menu in the top right corner, you can click on webinars, I believe, and go from there. Yeah, these run from 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time. So like Ann mentioned, next Thursday is QuickBooks Intermediate. The week after that is QuickBooks Advanced, and the last one is dedicated to nonprofits. So I would go to score.org and look for what you're looking for. Okay.
What are the key features that QuickBooks has that Xero does not? Candace, I do not use Xero, so I cannot answer that question. I apologize. Lisa, I'm sure they will send out the links at the end. For the next session, we can absolutely cover that at the end. No
Yeah.
problem.
And if you got the link to this, and anybody that's on this webinar is automatically enrolled into our email distribution list. So you should receive, check in your junk folder. It might be showing up there, but if you haven't received it already, you should be. We probably put out a couple blasts already for it. So hope that answers your question.
Pamela, there will be a recording that you will get for whatever you missed in the beginning on top of the PowerPoints. So if you have any additional questions after reviewing what you've missed in the beginning, which is totally no problem, you'll get my contact information at the end, and I'm happy to work with you directly on the little bit of pieces that you might have missed, okay? Perfect. So I'm going to get out of QuickBooks here. Let's open our PowerPoint here, and we are going to scroll down to the nitty-gritties. Guys, I apologize. This is a longer section. We will take a break as soon as we're done with this section. But it is very important to help us understand where stuff goes, because that's probably the biggest common question I get. People can like, oh, I can be tech savvy, I can click around, I can figure it out, but they don't know what they're trying to figure out. They don't know what organization they want for their company, or they don't know what's right or wrong. And so there's a lot of like individualized things like, well, do you have these expenses? What are you tracking month over month? What changes in your industry? Those types of things. Big one I'm getting right now is cost of goods with the tariffs and things that might be going into place or are going into place. So their cost of goods is going to increase dramatically. So we need to monitor what it was this time last year versus this year. Are we charging enough now because of the increase in costs? And how do we implement all these things and monitor these expenses? So keep in mind as we go through this, some of these things apply to you, some of them don't. Just work with me. These are overview expenses. This is not every bucket under the sun, but this is going to catch majority of the things that you're going to come across. Okay. So we're going to talk about, there are 3 slides of this. I'll go through briefly each individual area. I'm not going to read the slide to you because you guys you have the slides and or will have the slides, those types of things once you get them printed for yourselves at the end. Okay. So we have business expense categories. These are the names that you would see on your financial statements, P&L or balance sheet. They are intermixed in here just so we're on the same page, okay? And then you have examples in the second column of what would go in those items, okay? So first one, employee wages. We talked about salaries and wages, okay? Based on your industry, salary and wages will be under payroll expense or can be under cost of goods sold. So if you are a service industry and you install windows, garage doors, heating and cooling, those types of things, your cost to offer your service would include your wages, correct? At least of your technicians. It might not include office employees and so on and so on. So this is where we get nitty gritty, okay? But employee wages are going to be any wages, salaries. It can be bonuses, commissions, PTO time, sick time, those types of things that the employee earns are going to go in their wages, okay? This is their take-home wage, what they take home and the taxes you pay on their behalf, okay? Then you might have education expenses. This would qualify under Salons. Salons have to go through and do specific trainings to keep up with the trends of all the new hair colors and all the new cuts and all the new blowouts and all the new perms and all the new things, right? This could be also for contractors or construction industries. There's constantly additional trainings for safety, or if you're taking on a contract, there might be something they require you to do, those types of things. This does not include sending your students to or your employees to college. That is not an education expense. This is something that pertains to helping them being educated in their field for your organization. That is an education expense. Okay. Something that it could allow them to be beneficial. Taking a notary class, getting notarized, there's a continuing education. If you guys paid for QuickBooks today, that this is again a class for education purposes for your employees. But this does not include actual physical school costs. I get that a lot. Okay. Employee benefits. This is going to be health insurance, if you offer life insurance, if you offer um, dependent care, so child care for your employees, those are going to be benefits. This also could include, some people put bonuses under here. That's okay. They include if they buy their employee lunch, that's a benefit. That's okay too. These are, again, some individual things. A lot of times I like to see how much I'm spending on bonuses under bonus. So I might have wages and bonus, right? For employee benefits, I want to see how much I'm feeding my employees or how often I'm buying lunch, right? So I want to see that under meals with employee meals, right? Versus sticking it all under just benefit. That is, again, preference for you. Okay. Rent expense. This can be a lot of things. This could be another category that has sub buckets. Okay. So this could be rent for a brick and mortar store for you. Okay. It could be a storage unit if you are a heating and cooling guy and need to store units. Okay. This could be equipment. If you're a landscaper, you might have to rent an excavator or a dingo, whatever it is, right? So you could have rent expense. This could be leasing, like you rented a vehicle for travel. Okay. Um, those are going to be there. Could you lump it all into rent expense? Sure. But my rent goes up every year. So I want to see that separate. I want to know based on my jobs I did how much I spent in equipment rental, because at some point maybe it would have been beneficial for me to buy the equipment instead of renting it if I'm spending so much money. So these buckets help us, based on our organization, help us create better business decisions as owners or people in sitting next to an owner to help them be educated on where they could better spend their money or help with cash flow. Okay. Taxes for leased properties. So again, office, equipment, vehicles, you just want to keep it kind of separate. You're going to have business interest, debt. This is going to be lines of credit, uh, vehicle payments, credit card interest if you don't pay them off every time. Anything that would occur there, we want to keep an interest expense separate. You're going to have payroll taxes. So the payroll taxes, these are the taxes that we are required to pay. So the unemployment, the federal unemployment, Social Security, and Medicare portions that we pay for the employees. So when I created, salary and wages, and then I created company taxes, I created company taxes because that's what it costs us to have an employee. We pay half of their Social Security and Medicare, and we pay federal unemployment on them, and then we pay state unemployment on them, and those are based on percentages and up to a certain dollar amount that they earn. Okay. So you see a lot higher of a company tax rate in the beginning of the year than you do towards the end of the year, because at some point people reach thresholds for certain taxes. Okay. Real estate taxes, this is for property. So if you are an owner of the building you rent or owner of the house you own, you're paying property tax on it, and that's an expense to you because you own the physical property and you have to pay that bill, right? Where I rent from a landlord and I pay what's called a CAM fee, and that CAM fee pays the general utilities and towards the property tax. But I don't physically pay that. It's just included in my rent. But my landlord then would have to deduct that he paid the property tax. Okay. So again, some of these specialize based on industry. Exercise tax, this is additional tax paid for alcohol, tobacco, and fuel. Not something that we do a lot in my organization at this point, but obviously drive-throughs, those types of guys are paying for all those items. Personal property tax, again, This is for your personal property if used. So sole proprietors tend to have a home office deduction where they could deduct a percentage of their property tax that they paid based on the usage of their home. Okay. So you would have that. You just want to have it listed as personal property tax versus um, real estate property tax because there is a difference when you're looking at it. Insurance premiums. This is another big one, kind of plays into employee benefits a little bit. So just bear with me. This could be broken up into your errors and admissions insurance. So liability insurance on your business. This could be auto insurance. Okay. If you have vehicles in your business, you've got an insurance policy for that. This could be health insurance because again, that might be an employee benefits, but maybe you pay for your employees 50% of their health insurance. So insurance premiums might be your main account, and then you have all your sub accounts underneath it so you know where your money's going. Again, to monitor how much did your health insurance costs go up year over year? How much did you have accidents last year on your vehicles? How much did that cost you in insurance premiums? So these are really good things to see side by side. Again, your choice. You could dump it all into one bucket because it's insurance premiums, or you could have it be detailed. Totally up to you. Then if you're a sole proprietor, individual owner, you have self-employed health insurance, okay? Obviously, again, could be a sub bucket of insurance premiums in general. The reason it needs to be separated somewhere for your accountant or yourself to know is self-employed health insurance goes on a different bucket on a tax return. It's actually located inside of your 1040, which is your personal tax form, not located on your business tax form, which might be a Schedule C or an S Corp, an 1120S. Okay. I'm keeping that very basic because if you know what type of entity you are, you know what I'm talking about. So you have to keep it separate so that your accountant or you know where it goes at the end of the year. That's the primary focus of that. Okay. Then you might have startup costs. So I have a restaurant. They bought a building. They had a ton of money they had to dump into the building to get it to be a restaurant, to get it to be the restaurant they wanted, all their decorations, all their redoing of flooring, all the closing costs, property taxes, utilities in this process, everything that it took for them to start the organization so that they could open the doors and boom, be a business, right? That's your startup costs. Okay. This matters because if you start a business in November, but you don't actually do anything with your business till the following year, you're not going to do anything with those startup costs from November and December. We're not going to write them off. They don't benefit us. We didn't make any money. They don't offset any income, right? Most accountants are going to tell you, and I say most, not every accountant, most accountants, in my experience, from what I know, are going to tell you to throw them into the following year as startup costs, and they will depreciate them over time because they're bigger purchases usually. Okay. You had to buy 10 computers. You had to buy $10,000 worth of office equipment, which would be desks, chairs, TVs, filing cabinets, printers, the list goes on. Okay. Startup costs is a very catch all bucket when you're first getting started. And a lot of times the startup costs is funds that you put out as an owner because your business isn't generating anything yet. Okay. Any questions about these ones so far? I did see we had a couple questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to answer those. But if you have any other ones before we switch to the second page, I'll put them in the Q&A for me, okay? Says I was able to connect my bank. I specified 2024, but I see 2025. How do I get into 2024? So first thing, click on where it says date and flip it from current date to oldest date and see if that shows you any 2024 data. If it doesn't show you 2024 data, then we might have to import it, which we have not gone over import. We will go over that after we do the account. So I'm going to leave this question to make sure that we get it answered for you before we're done. Kate says, is unemployment insurance considered a benefit or a payroll tax? Kate, in my professional opinion, I keep it as payroll tax. Yeah, Kate, some do want it to be considered fringe. If you do it under payroll tax, it's considered fringe. It works all the same. It's kind of a intermixed bucket there. Dina, it says, do I have to update the cost of a goods every time we buy an item? Um, there's a two-step to this one. Are you talking about the cost of goods as far as what we're going to see on the financial statement, which would go into play with when you actually buy it from the supplier and it comes in through your bank account, however you bank, credit card, line of credit, however you paid for it? Or are you talking about what you charge a user when you're creating an invoice? Okay, the answer to would you split occupancy rentals from equipment by creating separate accounts? Yes. Lisa, if you change the chart of account the way we talked about by editing it, yes, it will change it for everything in the past. If you're just changing the name of the account. Lisa, we would create sub accounts under insurance for those and make them. So you would create an account and then there's a box on that create account screen that says check as a sub account, the sub account and under insurance. And that's okay if your health insurance shows as a benefit. That is a preference on you because it goes technically can be in either bucket. As long as you know where it is to tell the people the proper numbers at the end of the year, you're good. Jane, yes, you will get a copy of the PowerPoint. Uh, Gwen, are you considered self-employed or are you an S corp? Yes, Tony, taxes can also be handled with sub accounts under the main account. That is correct. Okay, I'm gonna leave the couple questions that are still in Q&A because I'm waiting for Dina to give me more detail. I'm waiting for Gwen to give me more detail. And then I'm waiting for the anonymous person to double check that they don't see any 2024 transactions if they specified it based on the filter option. Okay, so let's go to the second screen. Okay, again, more first column would be the name we see. Second column is the description. So business bad debt. Bad debt is customers that refuse to pay you for whatever reason. Maybe they went out of business. Maybe they didn't think you did good work. Um, maybe they're just stiffing you to stiff you. Who knows? It does happen in business, sadly. Okay. So business bad debt. I tend to create either a discount bucket, bad debt bucket, and you'll put in all the accounts receivables that you know you're not going to collect on inside of there. Okay. And the reason this is important is because I want to look back and go, oh, Jane Doe didn't pay me in 2024, but wants me to do her taxes in 2025, but I never got paid for the work completed in 2024. So it's an opportunity if they come back to you to go, well, you need to pay 2024 and 2025 before I produce any more work. Or you have the ability to go, hey, I can no longer help you, Jane. You have a great day. Sorry about your luck. Okay. But you have the history to show that you never got paid because you listed it as bad debt on that invoice. And obviously then you're not paying taxes on money you never got. Okay. So that's what the bad debt is for. Reimbursement, travels, meals, and entertainment. Okay. This is for employees. Obviously, if you pay them mileage based on whatever the mileage rate is at any given time. Right now it's 70 cents. Okay. If they're traveling for work and you need to pay them to eat lunch because they got to eat between meetings or eat at a conference, you're doing some of that type of thing. This could be flight tickets. This could be, um, entertainment's still not deductible, so it doesn't matter about the entertainment side. Like if they need to go to a concert because that's what everybody's doing, or I used to work for Microsoft. Microsoft used to wine and dine us in different countries all over the place. We were in Toronto. I was up there for 6 days with 4 of my team members, and for those 6 days, my company paid for everything we needed. Down to the outfits we wore because they wanted us to look a specific way. Okay. That's reimbursement, travel, all that kind of stuff. When we came back, we produced the receipts from the credit cards. They then reimbursed us for the money we had spent on meals, and everything while we were there. Same concepts goes. Okay. This again is based on what your expectations are inside of your company. What does your handbook say if you have one? What do you normally do? Okay. What guidelines travel for work versus just general commuting? That's internal workings there, but just know what falls in that bucket. Advertising and marketing costs. This is a fun one, so bear with me. Again, this plays into a lot of mix and match with what can be dues and subscriptions. Okay. So, for example, I have my website hosted with GoDaddy. Okay. GoDaddy charges me every month for my website. 24 bucks, say that's what it is. Okay. So it's a reoccurring dues and subscription because it hits every month, right? But it's my advertising cost to have a front facing website. So I would stick it under advertising. Again, total internal preferences for you. Okay. Advertising costs, business cards, flyers. Um, if you have like uh POS system, if you're using a nurture marketing CRM that communicates with customers, all of that can go under advertising. Another bucket that can go under advertising is certain donations will qualify as advertising. Okay, because we donate to put our business out there. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm doing a silent raffle. I'd like you to donate a $50 gift card for nails, or a $50 gift card to your restaurant, or a 50," that's advertising because it's branded walking out the door to go advertise your business, and you donate it to an organization in need for whatever they were trying to donate the money for. Okay. That can be advertising as well. Okay. Car and truck expense. This again can be something that I personally like to have broken down. I like to know if I have a lease payment, how much is it? I want to know how much I spend in fuel, and I want to know how much I'm spending in repairs and maintenance. The repairs and maintenance to me is really, really important because at some point your vehicles get old and you need to know if you're spending too much money to keep them running versus buying a new one. Again, helps with an education decision here. The other reason that this is important is what you spend in your car payments, lease payments, whatever it might be, right? And if you decide to depreciate your vehicle, you don't get both expenses. You either get the cost of purchasing the vehicle or you get mileage or you get the fuels and meals and entertainment. Okay. So usually as accountants, we want all the data so that we can see which option is better for you to take the best deduction forward. Okay. So that's why you want to see the auto stuff kind of broke down as well. Again, you also might have license and fees in there for your tags, that type of thing. And again, under auto and truck expense, you could have another sub account insurance, or you could have it in the insurance bucket. This is all how you want to organize each segment of your business, not me telling you what's right, wrong, or indifferent. Charitable contributions, we talked about a few that might go under advertising, but obviously our goal as organizations is to give back to our community in one way, shape, or form. So charitable contributions, we have a bucket for that. Based on your type of entity, it will tell you where it needs to go. But you can donate, uh, material and those types of things, any products, any of that kind of stuff. Okay. Things that aren't going to necessarily qualify is your time. You can't say, well, I donated 100 hours of my time at $40 an hour. It's not how that works. There's no deduction for that. There's no savings for that. This has to be a swap of a physical item or a physical service. Okay. Not just your time. So I want to specify that with that. Clubs dues and memberships fees, dues and subscriptions. Here we are. Okay. So this could be if you have you sell houses for a living, you have real estate licenses you have to pay, you have to MLS sites you need to pay for, you have those types of things that are going into there. Chambers of commerce, public services, real estate boards, all that kind of stuff goes into dues and subscriptions. This would be anything you pay month over month over month over month. Okay. Um, or it could be a once a year fee. That's up to you on how detailed you want to go with that, but it's meant to be both. Okay. Franchise, trademarks, and trade names. Obviously, these occur in purchase or are things that you implement through. You just want to keep them separate because they become assets for you. So we definitely want to know the difference. And then obviously some things require renewals at certain time frames, pending your industries. Okay. Interview expense allowances. This is for job candidates. You can help with like bus passes, tickets, stuff like that. I don't see this very often in small business in general, but it is something that you can do. And then obviously, again, if you are trying to meet with a potential client or a potential staff member and you do it at a coffee shop, that is a deduction of 50% for you for what you cost to buy that item while you were there. Okay. Legal and professional fees. So these are, any contractors, outside service people you're using, attorneys, CPAs, bookkeepers. If you have contract workers in general, they can go under professional fees if you want. You can also create your own contractor bucket. Either is fine. But these are services that somebody is offering you to your business, okay? But they are not employees. That's the big deal there. Tax prep fees, obviously, again, can be lumped under professional fees, but it used to be before the standard deduction that you could write off the cost of your tax prep. So you obviously get a bill for tax prep if you don't do it yourself. If you do it yourself, you even probably do get a bill unless you're on a free software. So you definitely will need to keep that, and then you can track it for yourself. It is a deduction to your business. That's why it's beneficial here. Okay. License and permits. This is liquor license, music license, Disney streaming license. Um, this could be permits to do work in North Canton. You might have to be registered in Massillon, carry bonds, all those types of things. That's really what's going in here. Anything that costs to run your business from a license and permit perspective. Penalties and fines. Some of these are deductible, most of them are not. Things that are not deductible as far as penalties and fines goes, speeding tickets are not deductible. If you pay taxes late and you get penalized, that's not deductible. If you end up in the Ohio Attorney General's bucket, what they're charging you is not deductible. So that's why you want to see penalties and fines. Obviously, again, something you want to pay attention to. If you have somebody that you had a deadline for and they missed it, and you charge them, a discount or a penalty for being late in production of work, and it's, that could be in there as well. Those are things that you just want to kind of monitor, kind of separate. And again, because it depends on where it goes on the tax return based on what it is. Okay. Repairs. Minor repairs like painting, cleaning, all those types of things go into repairs and maintenance. Okay. A lot of times this is, minor stuff. You needed a repair guy to come out and fix your water machine because it was clogged, right? I needed to paint my conference room because it was all etched up from so many chairs and so many people being in here. I needed a repair guy to come out and fix my printer or my postage machine. Those are going to be the things that you see in there. If you own real estate, you might have, oh, I got to repair I got to rip out the carpet. I needed a dishwasher repair guy to come in. But when you get into massive repairs like replacing roofs, anything over about $1,200, then that needs to go under major repair because those items are probably going to be broken up over time, not taken in full. Depends on your industry, depends on how profitable you are. General rule of thumb in small business is anything over about $1,200 is something that you probably should ask your person about to make sure you put it in the proper bucket. Okay. And again, you can have it as sub account. Like I have campgrounds, they want repairs and they want to know how much they're spending in gravel, site repair, land repair, pool repair, the major things that are going to cost them money. They want to know what they are. So they might have sub accounts under there where some of us I don't have major repair bills at all. When I moved in, I painted, I'll maintain my equipment over time and that's about it. That's probably the major repair numbers that I'm going to have. So I don't have a ton of repair and maintenance in my service-based industry at all. Okay. So club dues and memberships and subscriptions play hand in hand. Again, dues and subscriptions, club and memberships. So these are things that you're paying month over month. Again, you can merge them together and create sub accounts based on what they are. You can keep them separate. That's totally your preference. Okay. Supplies and material. This would be like paper, ink, printers, light bulbs, shop supplies, oil, uh, nail polish, acrylic, whatever it might be that your industry does. Okay. Just giving you some ballparks of ones. Okay. Supplies and materials, items that you need to produce your service. Okay. Um, I personally keep office supplies and maybe like shop supplies separate, in my opinion. That's up to you. Do with it what you will, but obviously it's all considered supplies and materials. Utilities, again, we kind of talked about it. Telephone needs to be separate. As you can see, it's the second line item. But then your utilities can all be lumped together if you want, or if you want to see how much you paid, Republic Waste, Ohio Disposal, um, those guys, how much you're paying in trash removal, how much you're paying in electric if you're responsible for that, how much you're paying in gas if you're responsible for that, how much you're paying in internet, because obviously that's a bill that fluctuates. And the reason we kind of look at these is that this is a year of shopping. My electric provider is going to double in rates. So my electric bill is going to double, right? So I want to see that so that I can shop the proper person. Same thing goes for gas. This also plays into like home office deduction, your utilities. You could put them in, but you're only going to get a percentage of them that's deducted. So it's important to kind of show what those utilities are, because we want to see what they are side by side. If you run out of contract on a trash guy, your trash bill might go from $100 to $300, and you're going to see it if you're looking at the money day to day. But if you're not, it's a good way to see it in trending in your reports by having that data kind of broke out for you. So that's why I tell you to do that. It's no perfect picture on how you have it, meaning that sometimes you pay a utility a day or two early for the following month so it's not late. And so then you've got double utility in 1 month, and that's just all kind of internal stuff for you to know. But it's there for us to have it, okay? Telephone, this is if you have an office phone or a cell phone, they both go into telephone. Um, the reason we do that is telephones used to be something they were really picky about back in the day. They're not so picky about them now. Don't worry if you're on a family plan, just write off what you can based on the usage of the business. If you are a sole proprietor and you use 50% of your phone, then 50% of your phone bill will be deducted. I use 100% of my one phone line on my plan because I have a work phone specifically for work phone, and I probably use about 50% of my personal phone from overflow of transition period. So I write off, that one line plus 50% of my other line is how that kind of works. And then my husband is in the business too, so I write off his line. So it's just picking it apart. It doesn't mean you have to have a separate utility or telephone bill for only what you do. Just know what you're looking at and make sure you have it written out so you know exactly what you're deducting. Okay. Last one on this slide is depreciable assets. Again, items over $1,200 in small business world tend to be items we would want to depreciate. If you're in your first year of business and you're not super profitable, that number could be smaller. It's on a case by case basis based on what you're purchasing will tell us what we're doing. And then obviously, if you're super, super profitable, you might take what's called a 179, meaning you depreciate it in full up to 100%. That's up to you and your CPA. That's done on like vehicles and equipment, major purchases over $10,000 usually. But not things are getting more and more expensive, so it can be on not limited to those items, but it can be up to $1 million in the first year. This is again forecasting. What are we going to do next year? Does it benefit us only today? Will it benefit us again next year? What are we trying to do? Some of those items there. Okay, so now it looks like we have some more questions, so let me get in the Q&A here before we switch to our last slide of these. Dina, yes. If you have somebody that is purchasing from you and your cost changes constantly, you would need to change it every time it changes. You could leave it where it's 0 and doesn't put any cost in, and then you could manually override it based on what the cost is at that time. It would be a trigger thing to make sure you always remembered to change it. But that's definitely something that you would have to do based on all of that. Kate is asking about per diem. Hey, that's more of an individualized question. Please reach out to me because the per diems rates have been fluctuating all over the place. Um, I don't teach that in this class, but I absolutely can help you with that. Jane says, if you're a sole proprietor, are you also an employee? No, if you're set up as a sole prop. Technically, the answer is yes, but you do not, when you draw money out of the business as a sole proprietor, it is not deductible as far as considering it salary or wages. So a little bit more detail there, Jane. We'll talk about a little bit more as we go through the class, but maybe something we talk about individually. Joseph says, are the charitable contributions deductible dollar for dollar up to 50%? They are deductible dollar for dollar up to a certain cap. That cap has just recently changed, I believe. Prior, it was up to $25. Again, depends on if you're a sole proprietor, S corp. You have different rules there. But yes, it can be deductible dollar for dollar depending on the size. Jane, the answer is you're a journalist interviewing a source for an article and you travel, purchase, coffee shops. Can those go under interview expense allowance? Yes, they can. Yes, forecasting and projections will be shown in the advanced webinar section. And also, Candace, if you want to, I talk about some of it in the nonprofit one as well. Kate, I would have my own bucket for per diem because it's a manual factorization if it was me personally. Okay, so it looks like I answered all the questions for now. So let's go to our last slide. Not very many on here. Um, our last slide of just the general trying to catch as many buckets as possible overview of expenses. So payments to 1099 contractors. Okay, contractors, people that are not employees, you have zero control over, other than here's a project, do you want it? Here's the deadline I need it by. That's a contractor. They work when they want, how often they want, at their price point, whatever it might be. That's a contractor. Okay, so somebody that might do your bookkeeping outsourced is a contractor. Somebody that might do design for you is a contractor. Somebody you might hire off of Fiverr is a contractor. They're not here in the US a lot of times, but they can be, obviously. The virtual assistants, those are all potentially contractors. Okay. Um, these are people that you're going to issue a 1099 at the end of the year. So you get a W-9 form from them that gives you their name, business name, EINs or socials and address. So you have the proper information to issue the proper tax documents. And then you're going to pay them more than $600 in a calendar year, then they are required to get the 1099. Okay. But these are people that are not considered employees, although you might work with the same contractors over and over again, but they're not employees. They're not covered under any of your insurance. They're not covered under workers' comp or anything. They work for themselves and they are just somebody that's doing a project for you. Okay. Home office, we've kind of talked about the different buckets that come into home office. So rent payments is one, utilities is another, property tax, insurance, mortgage interest, all those types of things. You get it based on a percentage of your house. So if my house is 1,200 square feet and I use 10% of my house as my office, then 10% of all of those costs are going to be deducted. Okay. This can include repairs and maintenance to an amount. Like obviously you have a bathroom, so if something needs fixed in the bathroom that you're using, that goes into it. If your dishwasher breaks and your industry doesn't require anything to do with your dishwasher, that doesn't really help you. Landscaping outside doesn't help you. Snow removal doesn't help you. So keep that as it may when it comes to certain things for home office deduction. 401k, SEPs, simple IRAs, all these fun things. Okay. Again, depends on the type of business you are, but you can implement all of these plans. And then you have you're deducting from an employee's paycheck and paying it on their behalf. And then you have a match portion that you might be paying monthly, quarterly, whatever it is, okay, that you're going to be deducting as a business owner as an expense for you. Okay. If you're self-employed and you have a SEP, you can put so much money into a SEP based on profit of your business. That again needs to be a separate line item than what you might be paying in for employees. Obviously, if you have your own Roth or traditional IRA, those need to be separate line items. Again, they need to be tracked for tax purposes and can be done. Okay. Client gifts, this kind of goes into advertising and marketing as well. They're deductible up to $25. They have the same kind of windows there. This could be Christmas gifts for employees or clients. You know, some people buy bottles of wine, some people send chocolates, some people send fruit boxes, you know, all the things that have been done in the past. Just as an, hey, we know you're a client, we really appreciate your business, any of those types of gifts usually. Where this gets where it can be a little bit more stretched, I would say is the best way to put it. If you send something branded, like a branded hot pad, that could go into advertising instead of client gift because you're advertising your business. If you have, I have people that drop off koozies every once in a while because they want me to pass them out. Again, they're trying to advertise, but they're giving me a gift in the same process. So again, use your discretion appropriately there. Make sure you talk to your tax professional. Make sure we have all that information. And then again, we have continuing education for you as an owner versus your employees continuing education. This could be for webinars, courses, anything that helps you get additional qualifications and things like that through your business or trades to help the business grow. Okay. Now it looks like we have a couple more questions. So let me take a peek at the questions and then we're going to take a short break here. James says, can you write off an entire new truck cost section 179 of 50,000? James, if you have the profit to do so, yes. At least on the federal level, yes. The state might not take all 50,000, but if you have a proper profit level to justify the 179, the answer is yes. Becky, you pay a social media company a set amount monthly. You are putting it under marketing. Do I need to put that under 1099? That doesn't necessarily matter, Becky, as long as you know they need to issue a 1099 at the end of the year. We will talk about on the next class how you justify a specific vendor to be a 1099 so that you can still categorize them wherever you would like, according to what they're doing for you, but then still be able to issue the proper document for them at the end of the year. Greg, the real answer is yes. We call it a management fee when it comes to being a landlord. Um, we tend to put it on one property, depending how many properties you have. Because otherwise it's a lot of work to divide it over 20 properties. And it's a very minimal amount, but yes, technically, because you're probably keeping some additional tools or things you might need if you do a lot of self-repair. You know, you obviously technically can write off your phones and all sorts of stuff, but we just call it a management fee. And that would be something you would create in QuickBooks or um, wherever you're tracking your expenses. Okay, so let's take a 15-minute break now, and then we will finish up. We're running right on time. Obviously, I talked a little bit longer than I wanted. I wanted to take the break at about 11, but that's okay. Let's take the break now. And come back in 15 minutes, and then we will go over the last few buckets we have, and we will be right up till 12 o'clock for the seminar today. Two items that are going to be two items that'll be crucial today to finish, and then the next one is if we get to it, we get to it. If not, we'll do it in the beginning of the next. So okay, so we backing up from we just went over how we would categorize all our expenses that we just spent all the time prior to getting them implemented, right? So now what happens if we don't want to integrate our bank account? Okay. Or we want to integrate our bank account, but it doesn't integrate back far enough for us. Okay. So this is a kind of a two-step thing here. Big one is making sure we take this gear icon here and we need to import data. Okay. So we're going to be on the import screen. You can import tons of data inside of QuickBooks: journal entries, customers, chart of accounts, which we talked about, bank data, and invoices. Okay. Obviously, bank data is credit cards and loans as well. It's all considered bank data. Okay. But what we have to do in order to do an import is we have to go over here and we have to get logged into something that we're going to need to import. Okay. So let's do. Trying to find an account that doesn't actually sync with QuickBooks. So that was why I'm looking this up real quick. So Citizens has a different portal. Citizens Bank has a different portal for their credit cards. Their credit cards are under a different login. So the credit card I have found personally does not integrate, as I am one that actually uses Citizens credit card for my business. And so I am looking up that specifically in order for us to go through the manual process of importing that, because I import that data based on each statement every month. Okay. So, of course, it's apparently not easiest thing for me to find right this set. Give me 1 second. Stop sharing. Let me go back over here. Let me share your screen again. Called Century Suite. So we'll hit log on here. Of course, it wants verification for security purposes, which is great. And every platform looks different. So just bear with me when it comes to like wanting your activity and porting it out. So I can look at the current billing cycle, or I can look at the previous. I'm going to look at the previous for training purposes. It tells me what format to download. It's going to be really important. It's QBO is your format. And then you can click download. So I have no other options. I can literally download by statement or by the cycle. So one by one. I can't mass download anything based on this. This is one of those things that like it just is what it is. Okay. So we're going to click download. So now it's in my downloads right here. So then we're going to go back over to bank transactions. Let's get out of this screen and then go back to our gear icon and go to import data. I'm going to import bank data. Here's my thing I just downloaded today. It's the only thing in my downloads today. And then I don't have an account for this yet because this is an account we were not able to integrate. So I need to add a new one. So this is going to be Citizens credit card. And I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know what the last 4 of it is, to be honest. I'm going to categorize it as a credit card. So the detail type is a credit card, and I can hit save. Now it stays here synced, so I can hit continue. And then it tells you import completed. Perfect. Now, if you're importing data like that and you're overlapping data, it's going to say there is a possibility for duplicates. It does try to give you a warning. It's okay. You can still continue with your import. Obviously, when you do your reconciliation, which we talk about on the next class, you'll be able to see what your duplicates are. But that's why it's an area that can cause duplicates, because it depends on what your activity is as far as it allowing you to download the data and in what segments. Because this only allows me to download by statement date, I won't, unless I download current, I'm going to have very little overlap here, because I can only download it one at a time. So it creates the limits for error unless I continue to download the current every week, and then I'm going to have overlap because current's going to be every week in the current statement. So if I download it every week, I'm going to have 4 weeks where I could have potential duplicates. Okay. So now this does show up in your sheet here. So here's my Citizens credit card. It's syncing, it's wiggling right there, and you can see stuff starting to populate. Okay. So it's going to work its magic and do that. And again, you can continue to import as many times as you need to based on what you're trying to do. Some places like Capital One will let you do, a year at a time in one import if you're going back and you need all of 2024. So each platform looks different in order to do the import, but that's how you do it. You go to gear icon, import data. Bank data is what we're working with right now. And I'll show you because I could probably get it to do the duplicates for me. Select what you've done. Again, a QBO file. It tells you it can be a CSV. You have to format it if that's the case, those types of things. And then select your account. And then import complete. So it did not warn me that there was duplicate. So now we've imported the same statement twice for training purposes, obviously, but I have duplicate data and it didn't stop it from happening. Just so we're on the same page, guys. It's really easy to do when doing an import. Okay, so if you don't want to sync and you don't want to import, what do? We manually enter transactions. Okay, so we go to our chart of accounts. And pending what account you're using, I'm going to do our operating account because it will make our lives easier. Okay, I'm going to click view register. Now, there's nothing in my register except what QuickBooks thinks was my beginning balance at 1/2 of 2025. So if I want to add a transaction, I'm going to click on this gray bar here and it pops open a box. Okay. This box then you can change to any date you want. So I'll go 12/31. And if it wants to be a check, it's going to assign a check number. Okay. You can also drop this down and change it to a deposit, sales receipt, a received payment, a bill payment, a refund, an expense, a transfer, or a journal entry. A majority of the time, it's going to be an expense, or it's going to be a check, or it's going to be a deposit. The rest of them, or a transfer. So transfer, expense, deposit, or check. Those are the ones you're going to work with the most. Okay. If it's not a check, like you didn't write a physical check and it has a check number, put it in as an expense. That's what you do. Okay. Deposits, if you don't use invoicing and you just use like a credit card processor, then it would just go in under deposits. Okay. The reason for that is you see I have an expense here. I can't put anything in this deposit box. Prevents you from making an error. Okay. If I change this to deposit, I can put stuff in a payment box, but I can put stuff in a payment box, which I wouldn't, but I can put stuff in the deposit box. So it traps certain things to help with error of using it. Okay. So 12, so I'll make this first entry, we're going to do 1/1. There's no reference number because it's an expense. And I'm going to say I paid Verizon. Of course, we have nothing in here yet. So I would have to create Verizon. So when you first start using QuickBooks, creating all the accounts can be time consuming. It's okay. If I want a memo, this is December/January phone bill. And then payment for this. So I'll show you something really cool QuickBooks does is I know that my husband's line is $35, my work line is $35, and then my personal line is $35, but I only use it 50% of the time. So 35 divided by 2 is 1750. Oops. Okay, so see how it says, please make it a valid number? If you hit tab, it totals it for me. And then my account would be telephone. So then you would scroll. If you get rid of this black bar here, it shows it and you can hit save. So this is how you manually enter a transaction. This part of QuickBooks Online is not super user friendly. You can tab through it, yes, but it does take a lot of time for it to be done. Okay. And as you can see, somehow it deleted my vendor, my payee. Verizon did not stay in that bucket. It's created, but it deleted it. So then I had to go back and fix it so that it shows as Verizon. So if I add an expense again, Verizon, it pre-populated my Verizon bill. It's trying to help you. This does make it easier, right? And then I can say January / February phone bill. I can change this date to 2/1. It is Verizon. It still goes under telephone. The amount didn't change. Boom. Okay. But it is time consuming to manually enter. So then if I have a check, I got to go into check. And I got to say on 2/1, I wrote check 1852. And I wrote this to ETC. ETC is not in here at the moment, obviously, because we don't have anything in here. And then I'm going to say email conversion to give myself a note of what it was. I paid them $2,000. And then this is going to go under professional services for me based on what we talked about, which doesn't come up. So add professional services. This is going to be an expense. And we're going to put this under legal and professional fees. I don't know why it doesn't come up in the other bucket because it definitely exists somewhere in QuickBooks. We'll hit save, and then I can hit save. So manually entering them can be done and will probably need to be done every once in a while. But as you can see, again, ETC did not stay in our bucket here. So you have to keep editing it. So it's glitchy because it's not the way that it's supposed to be used. And again, time consuming. Desktop is the same way. You got to manually enter all the same information in desktop. It just tends to be tap, tap, tap smoother. It goes quicker because people are more savvy with it. You don't have to constantly click. Once you've entered a transaction, it just takes you to the next line. Well, this doesn't do that. You have to keep clicking on it. Okay. Now, if you've entered data and then you go back to your bank transactions, sometimes it's smart enough to realize you've already entered the data. Now, the data I entered is not entered in what we're going to actually do from a categorization perspective on the next class, but it can actually be entered. Okay. Any questions about manually entering a transaction or importing the data? It looks like we have a couple questions in here. Anonymous attendee, does foundation software sync into QuickBooks? Which foundation software are you looking for? And then is there a session on creating invoices to customers? Yes, we cover that in the next session. Jane says, when is the next class? It is next Thursday. So that would be Thursday the 8th from 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. Is a reference number to classic hard copy check? No. Can you put the check number in as the reference number? Sure, but it's just not going to populate and look like it was a check. But that's a nitty gritty thing, your preference. But yes, you could use it that way. No, does not have quick add like desktop does, other than that you can just not fill out anything else and just hit submit like you saw me do on class today, because we actually talk about creating vendors and all that stuff next class. Yes, you can print checks from QuickBooks to your printer. QuickBooks Online just does not have the ability to print a signature. Any other questions, guys, as we obviously just hit the noon mark? So I'm going to go ahead and put up my contact information. Like I said, feel free to reach out to me. Oops. Feel free to reach out to me directly about individualized questions that you might have, or if you think you need some additional individualized support, I'm happy to help with that. We can talk through what you're looking at. My email here, A-Sharp Excellent Admin, always available via email. Phone number here does receive text messaging if you're more comfortable to text. Definitely something that you can do. And then you can feel free to check out my website. I have a very basic website, as I don't do a lot of business with web traffic, just more for a formality for me to look legit. But again, feel free to reach out. And then our next session is next Thursday from 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. It is our intermediate course. So everything we put in today, we'll actually start playing with and categorizing and doing the work in the next class so that you can then see what it does to the reports. Any other additional questions?
Looks like, no. Does foundation software sync to QuickBooks?
I need a little bit more detail on which foundation software they're trying to use.
Yeah. Let's bring that back next week. So
Okay.
I think that's it. And thank you so much. A lot of information. We had a great turnout, and hope to see all of you next Thursday, 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. Uh, Talk to y'all later.